Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Web Dev Podcast. We are going to have a great conversation today with one of the core maintainers of React. We're going to be talking about some of the modern features of React that you may not be aware of because, like React has been around for a long time. There's a lot of educational materials that show it as being one way, and if you're not really plugged in, you might be missing some of these new features. So please join me in welcoming Ricky Hanlon. Ricky, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for taking the time to join me. I know that you've been super busy with a whole lot going on lately, and I have a million questions for you. But before I jump into those, I just wanted to ask for folks who maybe aren't familiar with you and your work. Can you give us a bit of a background on who you are and what you do?
Yeah, I'm Ricky Hanlon. I actually just passed my 7th anniversary at Facebook, and I've been working on the React team. Started on React Native for a couple of years, but I've been working on React since 2020. So it's really exciting. I do a lot of tweeting and talking about React and helping people understand it. So I'm excited to kind of chat and learn with you.
Yeah, I'm really excited to have you here because I feel like I don't know that I feel out of the loop, but I feel like I've maybe seen my own feed around React sort of settle into a very specific kind of cadence. And I guess that sort of makes sense, right? Like React's been around for 12 years now. And so I guess we could maybe expect as a community that it's kind of matured and settled, right? And like is that reasonable to assume that like, React's kind of hit its stride and it's now baked, it's done, or is there more to it than that?
Yeah, I love that. I think that's a very shared sentiment, as I see kind of people talking about things. That's one of the reasons I want to kind of get on here and talk about some of these new ideas because I think, and I talked about this at ReactConf a couple of weeks ago, is that React is like landing more innovations now than we ever have with things like activity and use optimistic and all these, and even the server side features, which not every app needs.
Yeah.
But it's like a really exciting time for me because I've kind of like felt like I've been watching the team build some incredible work, and I'm not sure that people appreciate everything that React has now today. And so
Mhm.
if you watch kind of our talks and our announcements over the past really 10 years, is we've been talking a lot about like in the future you'll be able to do this, in the future you'll be able to do that. This is like what concurrent rendering is, and this is like strict mode for effects thing. Yeah, it breaks it, but in the future it'll make it easier to adopt this thing. And throughout that time, there's a lot of frustration because there was a lot of like
Mhm.
future promises. Well, we've delivered those promises now, right? And so one of the things that I am really trying to get out there and help people see and understand is like, what is this new world? What are all these new capabilities? How can you use them to build better apps, better experiences with less code? And
Mhm.
so I kind of did a demo of that at ReactConf, which we'll have the video released on that soon. But yeah, it's just a really like one of the things I have been saying is that I think a lot of the perspective is like, oh, there's this like one API, and if I have this one use case, I can just drop in that one API for like that use case, like transitions. It's like, oh, if I have this like slow render, I can add a transition to it and make it faster. But
Mhm.
it's really like a end to end different way of writing your app. Like all of these features work together, and you really have to. What I've been calling async React is that all these features really come down to like handling async,
Mhm.
like requests and gets and posts, and like asynchronously rendering things that are not visible versus visible. And I want to kind of like paint the picture of like what does a fully async modern app look like?
Yeah, and I think I mean maybe the best way for me to get my head around it, and maybe for people who haven't been following closely, is let's just kind of talk through the different pieces that are happening in the apps because from the outside looking in, I've been aware of like two really big things that have been going on in React. I think the biggest one and the one that's been getting most of the like, attention in the discussions has been React Server Components. And then the other one is Suspense. Now, Suspense has been talked about for a really long time, but it always seemed like it was saying like, Suspense is coming, but it's not ready yet. And I believe it is now fully ready, as you said, and that's not all of what we're talking about, though. Like, there's more going on that maybe didn't get the spotlight. So we're not going to talk about React Server components really today. There's plenty of content about that elsewhere. So I want to focus more on this, like you said, async React side, which is where I've found most of my use cases for React lie, which is in kind of the client side single page apps, building dashboards, building things that are heavily reliant on client input and don't really need any kind of server state or any of the backend features. And so the promise of Suspense was that it gave me a way as a dev to get rid of the manual checks for deciding whether or not my data had arrived. Right, I could kind of pick a part of my app, wrap it in a Suspense block, and I would be able to get the skeleton loader component if that's what I want, or a loading spinner, or a completely different piece of UI that says like, sit tight, something cool is coming, and React will manage that for me when the promise resolves effectively.
Right.
But there are more things to a great async experience than just being able to suspend on that initial load. So can you talk through a little bit of like, how are you thinking about this lifecycle, and kind of what tools are we going to have as React devs to dig into them?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. It's interesting because the way that I think about Suspense is a little. I mean, that is the way you described it is like a feature of Suspense. It's like I don't have to manage my own like loading state, and the way that I think about it is that it's really like segmenting your app into like larger chunks, and by doing that, it allows React to know like this part of the app is separate from this part of the app, which is separate from that part of the app, and you can do things independently of them. Now, a lot of those benefits come into play with server rendering, with things like hydration and being able to hydrate boundaries at different levels. But even on an initial page load with a client rendered app, there's some benefits to that. But the way to think about Suspense is like Suspense is your async feature for gets.
Okay.
And so whenever you're doing a get, you can suspend and fetch that data. And then whenever you need to get it again, you should like refetch in render. And so it allows you to move that. You're not allowed to do side effects in render, but you're allowed to define data dependencies in render, and you can use Suspense to do that. Then the second piece of async React is transitions. And the way I've been thinking about transitions lately is that transitions are your posts, right? And your posts and your navigations, basically two big categories for transitions. And so in the same way that Suspense allows you to like declaratively do your loading states for gets, transitions allow you to kind of declaratively do mutations or navigations to the next thing. And the really key part is that Suspense and transitions work together. So, for example, on initial page load, you'll show Suspense fallbacks. And then say you're like, in your admin dashboard, you change the filter. Well, a really bad way to do that would be, okay, I change a filter, and then the thing that I'm looking at in the list like completely disappears and is replaced with a glimmer, with a Suspense fallback. Because as a user, I'm like looking at things, I got things going on, and then you unmount the entire list. Even for performance, this is bad. You unmount the entire list, and then you remount it when the data comes back. So what you want to do instead is, okay, change the filter. Give me some feedback on the filter that it's like loading new results. Let me still look at those results, because while those are loading, I might be looking at things like, oh no, I don't need to change the filter. I can click on this thing. That's the thing that I actually wanted. I see it now after I clicked. And transitions allow you to do that. So transitions work with Suspense, because if you're inside of a transition or like a user action, then the Suspense is still breaking your app up, but it doesn't show the loading state. And
okay,
then we can get into like use optimistic and how that can help you provide even like faster feedback. But
yeah, so if I'm thinking about this then correctly, the mental model that we want to build is we're sort of thinking about each section of our app in terms of how we would interact with it, as opposed to like defining all of our dependencies at the top level and kind of passing them down through context or props or whatever. We're sort of able to think about them almost as like independent little capsules of app logic. And by wrapping things in suspense and transition, we're able to safely put these anywhere on the page, knowing that we're not going to break the user's experience when the fetches go off. It's not going to like re-render the entire app tree or the entire component tree because it's, you know, passing through whatever prop state or whatever it is. So we can feel a little more confident if we build this way that we're going to deliver something that feels like it does what the user's asking it to do, not doing stuff that it didn't ask.
Yeah, and if you take like a step back and think about the problems of doing async in client-side apps, like just in the history of doing client-side apps,
Right.
there's like so many cases that you have to handle. So, you know, user clicks on something, you do a fetch, and then they click on something else. What are you supposed to do?
Mm-hmm.
You fire off 2 requests. Now, what happens if they come in out of order? Right? Then you get the flickering, bad experience where like, oh, the page updates with the second request, and then the first request comes in, reverts it backwards. Now you're going backwards in history. And
Mm-hmm.
then you combine that with like mutations. You like fire off a mutation, you fire it off again. Those come in out of order. Your gets then also come out of order. Like benefit of doing like suspense and transitions with user actions is that you can just like write it in a very like if you are just suspending, if React will just throw away like one and use the next one.
Okay.
Or if you're doing a mutation, we'll wait for the mutation to finish and then we'll do like the get. That way you don't have those out of orders. And so if you're basically giving React the information about all of the async stuff that's happening in your app and then allowing React to coordinate it.
And so is this kind of taking over? As I've built some of this stuff in vanilla JavaScript just to see how it works, and I find myself like, if I have multiple buttons and you want to be able to click those buttons and have, you know, if I misclick, I click the first button and I meant to click the second button. If I quickly click the second button, I want it to cancel the first button, and so then you have to have like what's it called, an abort controller, and you're kind of like managing all these things that are being passed around to be able to control the promises that are unresolved and all those sorts of, it's a very like, it's not hard because the APIs are, you know, they're clear, you can use them, but it is a very manual process and you have to track a lot of threads going through. So are you saying that the way this is done, this is kind of done all that for me, where if we're using a transition and I say like, well, I've got transition 1, I've got transition 2, if I click 1 and then accidentally did that, meant to click 2, it sort of manages the process of aborting signal 1 and making sure that am I reading that correctly?
Yeah, definitely. The
Okay.
one nuance there is for mutations, like we wouldn't automatically cancel the mutation. And so
Mhm.
in that case, you would need to do like an abort of the previous one. But in just the default case, let's say you have like 3 tabs, right? And you click on
Mhm.
one tab, it takes a while to load that tab. And you're like, I didn't mean to click that tab. I meant to click the other one. But you just click
Mhm.
the other one. React will be like, oh, we're not going to wait for that first tab to load. Let's just load the second tab. When that second tab is ready, it'll come in. And so all this like manual coordination and canceling requests and everything. And there's also a benefit there because I mean you can abort the request, but if you don't abort the request for the second tab, we'll still like load the data. It'll be in the
Mhm.
cache. So if the user does go back to that other tab, the data is already there. You've already fetched it.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. So okay. So then this is starting to click for me, and like the amount of struggle that you feel when you start getting into these complex apps where, you know, everything does load on demand and user interactions trigger things to load, they trigger things to be mutated, and all of that is something that if you're, you know, I remember back in the day before hooks even, like that coordination was hard. Yeah, and you had to reach for third party libraries, or if you weren't reaching for third party libraries, you were writing one, because it was, you know, it's just it's I think this is one of the hardest problems in modern web apps is that the data is coming from everywhere at completely random intervals because it's all influenced by what users are doing, as well as now we've got like things coming in on WebSocket. We've got things coming in through, in some cases like server push and stuff like that. Like that's really, really interesting to kind of think about how do you solve that at the framework level so that we as web devs can kind of not have to think about it. And
Right.
so I guess this is actually a question that I have because I feel like, React is so big and has such wide adoption that I think you just get a lot of crap because everybody's got opinions about like what they want it to be. Um, how are you making these choices? Like when you were looking at designing an API around Suspense, when you're looking at designing transitions, how do you make choices on like what is the right thing? How are you getting feedback on ergonomics? How are you deciding that like this is going to be the thing that doesn't break thousands of our users' apps when it rolls out in the next release? Um,
Oh yeah, that's a really hard question. I think the biggest struggle, and first of all, I don't really make those decisions.
mm,
There's other people on the team that are way smarter than me that think about these things. Um, but kind of following along and looking at it, I think like we start from first principles of what is the core problem, and then we figure out like how do we solve that. You saw this with a concurrent mode, and if you go back and
mhm,
watch Sebastian's 2017 talk, he really talks about it from first principles. So in that talk, he was
mhm,
talking about how the React team thinks about performance, and he broke it down into performance has a bunch of ways you could squeeze down performance and get it really small, but then fundamentally you need to be able to parallelize things. And so what would
mhm,
we need in order to parallelize things? And that was where fiber came from. It was like a first principles, like we need to be able to break the app into chunks. And
mhm,
you need to have priorities for different chunks of work. And so we built that with fiber. And then it was like, okay, now that we have the app broken into chunks and we can prioritize them at different levels, what are the different priorities? So we built out like, immediate priorities from like user interactions. And we also outlined the concept of like three paints. It's like the
mhm,
ideal, if you kind of think about what is the ideal um, user experience when they click on something and then they see a result. And if you minimize it, there should be no more than three paints. And the first paint is when I click on it, I get immediate feedback as fast
mhm,
as possible. This is INP, immediate feedback. I change that filter, I immediately see the filter that I selected.
right.
And then the second paint is the like busy state. And so it might be like a spinner, it might be a glimmer, like, and there's two different cases there. On an existing page, you want to just show a spinner in line and not like completely. But on new navigations where it's completely new content, you want to show like a glimmer, and you want to do that as fast as possible. And
And
then the
and you're using the term glimmer, and I don't know if I've heard that one before. Is that it when I said skeleton component earlier, is that kind of what you mean?
Yeah,
Or am I
that's a Facebookism. We call them glimmers. It's the page
Oh, okay.
skeleton. It's the
Gotcha. Gotcha. Gotcha.
shimmery thing. Um, and then the third paint is the content when
Mhm,
it's actually finished, and you get that. And what you see if you're manually doing async yourself is you see just a ton. And it's interesting because back in the day when we were doing like PHP apps, the problem that we had there was that we had the immediate feedback. If you just use a native select component, and that will always
right.
the browser just update that immediately. Then you'd have no intermediate state, and then
Mhm,
you would see the final content because you're doing a multi-page navigation. And so JavaScript was invented to solve that problem. It was like,
mhm,
hey, how do we add some feedback to the user during this intermediate state? And so we got JavaScript, and it's okay. Now with JavaScript, after you do that select, you can update the page until we load the new page for the full page navigation. Um,
gotcha.
and you would do that with like a form component and a non-submit. So that's kind of like starting at first principles, figuring okay, so now how do we design APIs that allow you to do this? And that was probably that's the hard part. And we it's interesting because like if you look back at the history, remember concurrent mode?
Mhm.
it was like, hey, we're going to ship this new thing. It's a completely different way to write your app, and you're going to have to rewrite everything. It's going to break everything. And it was like a huge thing. And then we kind of went back to the drawing board and thought about, okay, now we know where we want to go. Even though we didn't have all of the answers then, right? We didn't know what use would look like. We didn't have async transitions, use optimistic activity. Those weren't done yet. We knew we wanted to get there, but how do we give people the gradual migration to start adopting these patterns? And so that's when we made all the concurrent features opt in, so that you could just like drop them in and use them in specific parts. But it would have been easier if we could have just like had a new library that worked this way by default. So that's kind of the way that it works, is like, what should these, what is the like first principles way the app should work, and how do we create APIs for that? Okay, now we know where we're going. Let's work backwards to how the ecosystem can migrate to those new patterns. And so now the kind of the struggle now is that now we have everything and you can incrementally adopt it. So how do we get like awareness, right? So now we have 12 years of patterns and knowledge and experts on these patterns that we've had for a decade now, and there's all these new patterns. And how do we get like awareness, education material, and explain all of them? Because a lot of these things are a lot more complicated in the, but they're also simpler. I don't know how to explain it.
Yeah, I mean, it's I heard this described as like a spiral, you know, because it feels like we have an idea and we push toward that idea, and then we find the limitations of it, and then we kind of like move back toward the other idea, but we've got more context. So it's not like, it feels like if you're looking at it from the top, it would look like we're going in circles. But as you look at it from the side, we're kind of like steadily getting better with each iteration, because we have more information as we start to revisit ideas that we were missing details about before. So it's that whole idea of like iterative shipping. If you ask people to use a thing, they're going to say, I really like this, but this part was terrible. And you go, oh, okay, so how would we do it so that they don't think that part is terrible? And then you just kind of keep going. And it's just really doing it on hard mode when you have to like release this as, you know, arguably the most well-known JavaScript library on the planet. So I do not envy the rollout that y'all have to do.
Yeah, there's the way that I kind of put it in my talk is talking about the innovation window. So if you look into research about like how innovation happens, is that you have this like idea and you ship it, and then you have this steep climb of adoption. And then you kind of hit a local maximum of like, you've like gotten everything that you can out of like this paradigm or this idea. Think about like cassettes, right? And then you have like a new innovation, but you will necessarily like go backwards. You go back down, because like new ideas take time to understand, adopt, get buy-in. And so it gets harder, but then you gradually will like climb up again, and you'll hit a new local maximum. So with like cassettes, when the first like CD players came out, they cost like $2,000 and they were massive, right? But the innovation was so powerful that over time that cost came down. Over time, you had CD players in cars, you had and then the adoption just took off, and the innovation was such a powerful idea. So we're kind of at that place with React now. It's like React 16 was like good. We could have just stopped there, right?
Right.
But these new ideas with being able to handle asynchronous built-ins is like an innovation. But and even you see this with server components. Like when we did like server components are an innovation, but in the JavaScript world, that looks like it's not bringing down cost necessarily, but it's things like tooling, right? We built so many tools around certain patterns. Then when you have a new pattern, you have to kind of like go backwards in the developer experience, just because you don't have like the tooling for those kind of things. And you see this with server components a lot. But those are solvable problems. And as those get solved, you start to go further and further up the curve.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting way to look at it. And I think, you know, you can see that if you look back through the history of React, where you can see these ideas emerging years ago. And you can, the thing that I think no one can fault the React team for is that you are nothing if not consistent in your vision for how this should get done. I think the details of how it's getting done have shifted as technology shifts, as APIs get tested. But the message around fiber has not shifted in years. And I actually think there was a website called like, is React Fiber ready yet? And you just hit full coverage on all the tests, right?
We hit the full coverage when we shipped React 16, and that kind of switched everything over to fiber. But the larger, I think to your point though, the larger of like, what does fiber unlock and how, like, what are all these new capabilities and things? I would say, especially with the 19.2 release, things like activity, and the 19 release with use and use optimistic and async transitions, like to kind of build some empathy for our team a bit is like, in like 2018 when we were building these things, we didn't know what all of the APIs were going to look like, right? So one of the things I tweeted was just like, if we would have like shipped nothing for since then, and then today we released like async React with all of these features, I think it would be a lot easier to click and understand. But just that we necessarily had to trickle things out over time, and we had suspense, and then we had use and transitions, and then all these other pieces. Now we have all the pieces.
And you and that almost like it's necessary to do that, but it creates a really difficult challenge, because when people have an incomplete puzzle, they're sort of forced to reinvent their own pathway to the complete solution. And so I imagine now a big part of the challenge is that you're almost working against like userland solutions or userland patterns that that help people overcome the things that hadn't shipped yet. And now you like, do you find that you have to do a lot of like uneducating of like habits and patterns that people have to, I guess that's why you're here, right? Is trying to get people to see the potential of doing it this kind of like new, fully comprehensive way.
Yeah, definitely. And it's also the concepts. Like over time, you would have to fill the gap in some of the APIs and concepts that we had with userland concepts, because the APIs to do those things didn't exist. Yeah, a good example of this is the use API. We're working with some data fetching libraries right now that are still using throw a promise, but the use API adds a lot more capabilities in terms of like performance optimizations that we can add, and also developer tools. But we had throw a promise for 5-6 years until we had use, and a lot of things depend on that specific like type of behavior. And so there's a little bit of like undoing to take that step backwards to take a step forward.
Okay. All right. And so I want to get us into, I kind of want to wrap here, but so you gave a talk at React Conf, and if we go to conf.react.dev, the full day is there, and it looks like it's got bookmarks in it so that you can find where where your talk is, and then the edited talk is going to drop soon, you said?
Yep.
And same URL, conf.react.dev?
Yeah.
Okay, great. And then you were talking about the use API, so I'm just going to drop a quick link to that one. And I'll drop a link to your profile as well. So that's just react.dev is a great resource. You can search on there for use. You're going to find the use docs. And then I'm going to drop your Blue Sky, which is ricky.fm on Blue Sky. Is there anywhere else that you want people to go to learn more about you?
Well, I'm back on Twitter.
Back on Twitter. What's the Twitter username?
Rick Hanlon II. A second.
Got it. Let me throw that one in the chat as well. So if you're using that one, that is x.com/Rick Hanlon II. All right. Well, thank you so much for taking some time with this and teaching us about it. Super excited to see more of this in action. Any parting words for the Web Dev Podcast here?
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, wonderful. All right. And so if you want to see more of this, we are on Learn with Jason going to do pair programming. So So if you want to see us actually build something using these APIs, look for that on YouTube, Encode TV. And if you like this, make sure you like, subscribe, share, do all the things that you need to do. Ricky, thank you so much for taking some time for this.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Have a good one.
All right, everybody, don't go anywhere because we are actually going to continue. We're just doing the show in 2 parts now. So we're going to start up the Learn with Jason show in just a moment. All right, so bear with me while I run a little intro here, and then we're going to get right into some pair programming. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Learn with Jason. Today on the show, we've got one of the React core maintainers who's going to be teaching us about how the new APIs in React work to let us do async React. Please welcome to the show, Ricky Hanlon. Ricky, how you doing?
Hey, Jason, how you doing? I'm doing good.
I'm super happy to have you here. I'm super excited to dive right into the code. But before we do that, can we just get a little bit of a background on who you are and what you do?
Yeah, my name's Ricky. I work on the React team. I actually just passed my 7th Facebook anniversary yesterday. So I've been working on React for a while now. I've actually been using it since like 2014, I think. So it's pretty wild. Before that, I was a backend dev primarily. And now I've been doing front end for quite a bit now.
Nice. Okay, so today we're going to talk about async React. And we're not going to go too much into the conceptual part. If you want to see that, we've got an episode of the Web Dev podcast that you can go listen to or watch, where we go into kind of the abstract. So in this show, we're going to jump right into the pair programming. So let me bring up my window here, and I'm going to show. Here's Ricky on Blue Sky. If you want to go give him a follow, this is the right place to go for that. And then also on. Just had this up. On Twitter, you can go find Ricky there as well. Let me throw that up on the screen. And all of these are going to be in the show notes. And we are going to be talking about async React, which I don't know why I didn't have your face up here. Sorry. Which you talked about at React Conf. So I'm also going to throw up a link to React Conf where you've got a full talk introducing async React and giving people an oversight into it. But I want to get right into the code. So Ricky, if I want to dive right into this, I've got a new empty project window here. What's the first thing I should do if I want to start learning async React?
Yeah, I mean, first thing we should do is just build a React app in whichever kind of like framework or start from scratch, whatever you want to kind of build it in. What are you thinking?
Okay, and so you said part of this is that we need an API and we want to be able to kind of fake that and control it. So I know how to do that really fast in Astro. So I'm going to do it in Astro because that's the one I know. Where are we going to go? Learn with Jason. And I'm going to make a new, or actually I'm just going to get, I want to do npm create, it was right there. Astro at latest, and we're going to call this one async React. Let me pull this up to the middle of the screen. Okay, so what this is going to let me do is this is going to let me have an API folder so that I can really quickly throw together our get and post endpoints, and then we're going to mount an async or a client-side React app right in the middle of it. So that way we have our full client-side React app, and we can fake an API to try these async features. So let me get into this new project, and then I'm going to open this one up in VS Code. Yeah, that's happy with that. See, we're not using AI today. We're using Ricky AI. So we've got our main index page here, and what I'm going to do is we're going to do pnpx Astro add React. I think that's all we're going to need. Okay, so I'm just adding in React here so that we have access to writing and running React inside. And then I'm going to pnpm run dev, and that's going to give us our app, which will be running out here in localhost. So we've got our extremely minimal app, and I'll take this to the left half, and then I'll take this to the right, right half. And inside of here, we can now start putting together some components. So you were talking about when we sort of brainstormed on like a good app to build. You had mentioned that you know, what these async flows give us is the ability to handle the initial page load as well as user interactions. And so I thought maybe an easy thing for us to do would be to just create the old classic of either a to-do list or a blog roll, so that we can have some items and add new items to it.
Yeah, let's do a to do. So we can show the thing that we want to show is using async React features for
Mhm.
both the get and the post or async requests.
Okay, so we've got our basic to do, and so the way that I would do this in like traditional React, right, is I'd get in here and I would import some stuff from React, and then I would export a function called to-do list, and I would return, you know, maybe let's call it an unordered list, and we'll give it some list items, and you know, it would be thing 1, and then we could do a thing 2, and then out here, I guess we don't even need this yet, so we can just leave this out. And then over here, I'd be able to import my to-do list from my to-do component, and then down here, I can say something like async React, and then we'll do our to-do list, and we'll make it client only. We're going with a single page app today. And when I save this, we get our thing 1 and our thing 2. So let me make those a little bit bigger. So how should I actually set up our components here?
Yeah, I think a good thing to do and for the learning aspect is like we need to get some requests in here. To fetch some data, and then we need to be able to like add a to do. So we need some posts. What do we start just using it? Like, how would you build this if you didn't know anything about the like new React features?
All right, let me put
What do you
together really
mean hooks React app?
wait, a pre-hooks React app.
No, 2016 post hooks.
26. Okay, post hooks. Okay, so let me just really quickly. We'll just do like a posts.ts so that we can, I think I can just copy this right out of the Astro docs, and then we'll have that way we'll have our APIs running, and then we don't have to look at them again. So let me just where's my docs at? Docs.astro. And then we're going to go to actions or not actions, to endpoints. There we go. And then I want, probably just make these static for now. So we'll get one of these. So that's going to be our get. And this one, honestly, we don't need any of this. So we can just return a new response that is going to have, we'll do to-dos, and that's going to be an array. And each of these, do we need any like IDs or things like that, or do you just want to send back text?
You probably need an ID and in text.
Okay, so
and we're going to probably be adding to this over time, so we can hoist that to.
Oh yeah, good call. Okay, so we'll get one of these. Okay, so that'll be our deal here, and we're going to respond with our to-dos. But what we can potentially do here is just like await. Let's see, a simple sleep function that I always forget. Async sleep. We're going to give it a milliseconds, and we'll default to 1,000. Oh my God. I'm on my fancy keyboard, and that means I don't know how it works. And so we're gonna say return new promise. Oh, stop whatever you're doing to help. You gotta stop it. And then we're gonna send a resolve, and we'll say set timeout resolve true. And the timeout is going to be whatever the milliseconds are. And I've gotten this wrong somehow.
Async function.
Right. And then I'm still
It's
missing.
usually when you're watching along to see those things, it's like shit.
Here's my set timeout. And that's going to resolve.
The milliseconds are correct before, but using parentheses instead of brackets for the.
Oh, right. Okay. And yeah, you're right. So this then needs to be these, those. That should be, there we go. All right, so now what we can do is we should be able to just await, sleep, and give it whatever amount of time. So we'll say, wait, this takes half a second to load, or actually, because we want this to actually show up, we'll make it like 3 seconds to load. And then we're gonna
you need to stringify those?
Yeah, that's what I'm doing. Stringify this. Okay, so now we have the ability to get these, which means that out here we can fetch them. And so in order to fetch these, I would do something like to-dos and set to-dos, and then I would grab use state. And then I would set this to like an empty array to start. And then I would do something like use effect. And inside this use effect, I would have it say, we need a function to do the fetch, right? So I need like an async function get to-dos. And this is going to be const result equals await fetch. And this is, what was it? It was going to be API posts. And that doesn't need any details. And then we'll say set to-dos is going to be res.json. And we're just going to trust that that works and not do error handling, because why not?
Well, that's a promise, right?
That is, in fact, a promise. Boy, we are learning that I have forgotten how to code today. So then in here, we can run get to-dos. And in here, we can to-dos.map. That's going to give us a to-do. And then we can put out one of these, give it a key of to-do.id and a value of to-do.text, I think it was. Yes. Okay. And you're unhappy because why?
We haven't typed our to-dos.
Yes, we have not. Okay, so then this here would be array of ID number and text string. Did I do that right? No. Array. You? Okay. So now that I kind of remember how all this stuff works, that theoretically means, there we go. We're getting our thing. And so then we can expand this to include a complete. Come on, bro. Or we'll say false. And then out here, we can expand. I should probably put this type somewhere else, but And in here, we can set this to have a checkbox just to make this really easy. We'll say input type checkbox, and we'll say checked equals to do dot complete. And why are you unhappy? Must have a label. It's fine. This is kind of gross, but yeah, whatever. That's fine. Stop yelling at me. So this then is like kind of doing what we want, but it's a controlled component, so we don't have the ability to actually update it. So we would need to write an on change. You're nodding. I realize I'm kind of like running away with this one here. Am I going? I'm going in the right direction.
Yeah, this is great.
Okay.
Now we need a post endpoint to actually mark it to do on the server.
Okay, so let's add that. We'll export async function post, and that one is going to allow us to await sleep, and we'll maybe do nice and fast for this one. But then what we're going to do is we're going to take in the, what do we get in this? Do we get the
ID probably?
Yeah, it sends in, I can't remember what it sends in. Params and dynamic routing. Where's my post set? It's going to give us the request, and the request is going to have the body of some.
Do they have a post example on here, like command F post?
Yeah, they do.
There we go.
So we get the request, and then the request is going to have its bits in it. Somewhere down here, they should show an actual example. And the request is going to come in as JSON. So yeah, so we send in the body as JSON, and then we're going to get, okay, great. So over here, we can get the request, and then we'll get the body out. Here we'll say body equals await request JSON, and then, why are you mad? Oh, because we have to do it this way to get it to type properly. Oh, and then it needs to return a response of some sort, and that'll make it valid.
You also need the async in your function.
Thank you. Okay, so our response for now can just be something like okay, and that'll let me validate, or actually, let me do this. Let's make sure that we're actually sending through what we think we're sending through so that we can be sure that I'm writing code that works, since that seems to be questionable today. So we're going to say async function mark complete, and that's going to take the ID, which is going to be a number, and then that is going to take await fetch, and that's again going to go to API posts, but now it's going to be method post, and it's going to have a body of JSON stringify, and we're just going to pass in ID here. And when we get that back, we can console.log. Okay, so then down here, each of these would get a on change, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we can say mark complete, and we'll pass in the to-do.id. You're unhappy because that needs to be one of these. Okay. Why isn't this wrapping? I feel like my auto formatting is betraying me right now. So then we have what should theoretically be the right components in place that when I click this button, we should see the ID logged. No. API post unexpected token.
I think when you're posting, you're not passing the body stringified. Oh, you are. Hmm.
Okay, so what have I done? Unexpected end of JSON input. So let's look at what I just did. And we're going to try this again. There's our async thing happening. So I'm clicking, it fails, and it fails because we sent through the ID and the response is a syntax error. So my syntax error must be it's an API route, it's an async request. We return a new response that is stringified. What am I missing? Let's see, maybe there's something in here that we... Unexpected end of JSON input. Not available in static endpoints. That's what happened. We are going to export const pre-render equals false. Now this thing should work. That 3 seconds is going to kill me. Console is not defined yet because I was halfway through debugging when I did some nonsense. That's fine. We're going to turn this way down while we write this. Let's make this 500. Okay. Okay. So
check the console.
That logged. And then when we click this other one,
but there's something
logs.
Something here if you go back to the network tab. I don't know if you noticed that you're firing off a lot of post requests.
Ooh, I am. These are all the fetches, right? So, oh, haha, you saw this and didn't fix it for me, did you?
Correct.
Okay, so one of those.
So now we hit, it's funny, like we immediately hit one of the bigger frustrations with React right now, which is effects and getting your dependencies right. And the spoiler for later is that we're not going to need this effect. So you won't have to deal with this in async React world.
Excellent. Okay, so we've got that. We've
Shout
got
out to Matt for calling that out a long time ago.
Yeah, thank you for paying attention. And then we need one more. So I'm going to copy paste this. Oh, we'll fix this as well. But this one is going to be or this one should actually be put, shouldn't it? Because patch or put. What am I thinking? It's put, right? For a modification.
A put would be a whole resource update. A patch would be a partial update. But
okay, so we'll use just so that I can keep the same route. We're gonna use patch for marking it complete, and we'll use post for creating a new one. And so in this one, the request that we would want is we would want to send through. So let me change this one to patch, and just make sure that that still continues to work. You got to get out of the way. Okay, so that's still working. And then we're going to have one more, which is going to be create to do. And that's going to require whole to do item, which is going to have the same type as this, which I'll pull out for the sake of let's see, we need type to do item. And then down here, we can say to do, which is our item, which is going to be to do item. And this one is going to be a post. And we are going to put in the entire item. And so what we expect out the end of that is that it's going to give us the whole thing. And then I'm just going to wrap this in a fragment so I can put things side by side here. We'll put in a quick form and we'll give it a label of add to do. input type text. We'll give it, I don't know if we need a name, but I'm going to give it a name of text, and then we need an initial value on this, I think, right? What's the starting value? Default value. It's just going to be an empty string. And then down here, okay. So then this, what we want is an on submit. We're going to run create to do. And we need to do that with, actually, why don't we do it this way? Because then we can just use the form input. And that's going to be the event, and then we'll get the form data is going to be event.target.form data. No, new form data of the event. Target, current target? Is it just the event? No.
Yeah, it's event.target.
Okay, so then that should give us the const text is going to be equals form data dot get text, and that's actually our whole thing. So we're gonna, it's not going to be a to-do item. In fact, it's going to be the text, and we can determine everything else from here. So to create a new post, we're going to do the ID needs to auto increment. And so we're going to do ID is to-dos length +1. And then we want to put in the text, which is going to be the body.text. And then complete is going to be false. And that should give us a functioning new to-do item, which we will drop in here. And then, assuming I did all of that right, submit event. Don't give me that. No? You? No. This is not what I'm here for. I'm not here to be good at TypeScript. Okay. So this then, this void is not. Can I just. I don't care. This is going to run without this, right? So theoretically speaking, then, if I say get better at TypeScript and add this, it just full submitted. We didn't prevent default on it. And so I can start there, and prevent default, and try that one more time. Get better at TypeScript. Then it submits, it gives us a new ID, it marks it as complete false. Okay, great. So now we should be able to actually do this stuff and make it all work. So we're going to say todos.append.
Push.
That's the one I was looking for. I was like, why are we push that item? Okay. And then here on the patch, we need to, we're going to say const item equals todos dot find, and we'll say t dot id equals body dot id. And then we're going to item.complete equals .complete. And we'll just make it a toggle.
You did
I guess we can just...
You did a triple equal.
God, item.complete. Fine. Gross. Okay. So then what's not going to change here is when I click this, it should update this thing, but it's not going to show anything because we're not refetching.
Right.
So then I need to figure out how to make it refetch. So then I would reach for what, like a dirty check and just like set dirty to true so that it re-triggers the effect?
That's a great question. There are a lot of different ways to do it. You could do that. You could also fetch in the event.
Fetch in the event. Oh yeah, good call. So then I can just
But I
down
would
here
do
run.
for just thinking ahead, I would do the like maybe a dirty flag.
Okay. Dirty, set dirty. And then let's use state, and that's going to be false.
Do a counter. That way every
Counter.
time you click, it'll dirty.
Okay. And then we're going to make the dirty check part of our use effect. And then we will set dirty to
like a updater C+1. Yeah, D+1.
Just copy that between our create to do and mark complete so that we can then, theoretically speaking, get better at TypeScript. That's it. And then we can say, okay, so that like, we're getting there. We're getting there. We have a functioning app. It's a little janky. You can see there's some stuff that I don't like about this. Like when I do a thing, it doesn't immediately
increase your sleeps to like 2 seconds so you can really show that problem.
Yeah, good call. Let's go in here. Okay, so these are going to take, I'm going to keep the get a little faster, but so get better add TS. And it just sits, but then it does show up. And then the same thing happens when I click. Like it's eventually working, but I have no indication that that worked, which if I didn't know that I'd put that long sleep in, I would be sitting here going like, what the hell is going on? Right. And I'm just triggering a ton of additional calls. And if I clicked an odd number of times, it's going to look like it didn't work.
And some other problems. Right now we're doing just a constant sleep time, but if we were doing random sleep times, then we'd be able to show some race conditions here of things being like toggled in the wrong order and things like that. Getting that to repro is probably hard. It's one of those edge cases that.
Yeah, but we should see things kind of like popping in. Very, very chaotic when you do it that way.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's the other one is that we're not canceling. So all these are getting queued up and you like click a bunch of times. And now if you saw that after you stopped clicking, it's like coming in and.
Yeah. And so I think this is, so we've kind of demonstrated like I hit a lot of stumbling blocks and I've written a lot of React code. And this is a mistake I make every time. I always forget to get my use effect right. And I always screw up these little things that cause me a lot of pain. And if I'm not using an API that's simulated, it's fast enough that I'm kind of like, oh, it's probably fine. I can probably ship this. And then it's not fine, right? Like you have a slow day and it ends up being pretty rough. So,
yeah. And one thing I think we should add one more thing and then convert this to async features. And the one thing is like when you add it to do, even when you mark complete, we don't have any pending states. And we can do that in this world. And, and a lot of the story here of writing an app like this is like you can do it, right? You can Lada is pending, set it, clear it when it's done.
Do you want me to do this?
Yeah.
Okay. Pending, set pending. That's going to be use state, false. And then we could also do this for like on a per component basis, like a per to do item basis.
Yeah, let's do that. We'll do that with use optimistic later because it's much easier. But
all right, so for these, we'll set pending to true. Same thing on this one, and then when we get to do's, we'll set pending to false, right?
Oh, that's interesting.
Because we're kicking off a new fetch, so that would be where I would assume I would do that.
Yeah, that's going to have a bunch of bugs with it, but the other way has a bunch of bugs with it too. The way people would typically do this would be like in mark complete or create to do. You would set it to true before you do the submission, and then you would set it to false.
Oh, right. Yeah, that's smarter. Why don't we do it that way? We'll start it up at the top, and then we await everything, and then we undo the damage at the bottom. So that makes more sense. So down here, we'll do the same thing here. And that one's going to be true. And then down here, we'll set it to false. And I guess in here, we'll say something like pending, and we'll just return should work. My auto formatter is broken, so I must not have prettier configured properly or something. But so as we do this, then so gross. I like that it comes back and still takes time to fix the good. This is good.
Yeah. Let's move that loading state up to outside of the list. So the list kind of stays there and will.
So the list stays there?
Yeah, we don't want to unmount the list while it's pending. We just want to kind of show a little loading feedback. So above, maybe above the form, let's do like a.
Yeah, I can do that. We'll just turn this into a paragraph.
Or maybe let's do it below the form because this is going to shift content down. Or below the list as well.
Okay. Oops.
So now this is interesting because we now have the loading state while the mutation is in progress, but we don't have the loading state while the fetch is in progress. So it's not this continuous loading state. What you want is, again, with the like 3 paints, is you want the loading state to start right as the mutation starts, and you want it to be completely present until that final paint, and then one paint you hide it. And we could fix this. It's very similar to like what you were doing with the app, setting it to false after the effect, but it gets very complicated, and even that will have bugs.
And like I'm already looking at this and thinking like, God, if I had to come back and maintain this later, like what a mess I've made.
Right.
And you know, this is a really simple example, and it just feels like I've caused myself a lot of pain in these situations. And I guess in this case, we don't even need that response. And I don't want to suffer for writing these sorts of things. And like this is a complaint that I've actually made. I've had conversations with like Dan Abramov about this, where use effect has always been something that when I'm writing with it, a lot of times I feel like I'm like fighting my own like muscle memory as somebody who's written JavaScript for my entire life. Like it's sort of like, okay, well, take your JavaScript knowledge, but then put it on a loop-de-loop, and you have to be able to track how many loop-de-loops you've done to be able to do this properly. So how do we fix this?
Let's get rid of the effect. So first thing we want to do is we want to do our data fetch and render with use. And to use, you will need to use, you can think of as like await on the client.
Okay.
We can't just use await in components right now. If in server components, you could just await the fetch.
Okay.
But for JavaScript reasons, we can't support that on the client yet.
Okay.
Let's do like a cache. Let's create a cache. So let's do const cache equals new map, and we'll cache this by key.
Okay.
Okay, and then let's do a const fetch data. Let's.
And this is going to be like an async function.
Yeah, that'll be an async function. And let's give it a like URL as a key.
Okay.
Okay, and now if the cache doesn't have that URL in it, let's do our fetch for that URL.
Okay, so I'm saying const.
I would just do
Right.
like if not cache dot has URL.
Cache dot has URL.
Yep.
Then we're going to const res equals await fetch URL.
Let's do then response.json. Cool. Then cache dot set URL. That won't be the data. That will be the promise. You don't want to await the fetch here.
Oh, we don't want to. Okay, got it.
Sorry.
Just going to call it P. Cache dot set, and then we're doing URL and P.
Yep.
Okay, so we want it to be a promise in the cache.
Yep.
Got it.
And then return cache.get URL.
Okay.
All right. And now for our to-dos, instead of
so do I not want this to be async then?
Correct.
Okay.
So now instead of storing our to-dos in state, we can just do const to-dos equals use fetch data with the URL.
And our URL is going to be API posts. And we want to grab it, drop that out. And actually, I'm going to take this. So that we don't break everything else. Okay, so now we've got, so we don't need the get to dos anymore.
Right.
Right. And then we don't need the use effect anymore, which means we don't need the dirty check anymore. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I can drop out my dirty check.
Let's delete that pending as well, because we're going to use a transition for the pending.
Get it the heck out of here. Look how nice this is.
We will need something to trigger a refetch, which we can talk about in a second. But
okay. So we've got our to-dos, and now if I save this, does this just work? No, because I got something missing down here. All right. Okay, so now this immediately already I feel far better about. Like, this is what I've always wanted in React, right? Because this is how I think about code is I would just, await it, but you can't do that in a component. So there was always this sort of like loop to loops. So thank you for fixing my loop to loops.
yeah. So now one thing that we can use now is suspense. So we can show a fallback state. And it wasn't super clear. We didn't show it, but in what we had before, the page would just basically be like the list would just be blank. We didn't show any loading state for when the initial fetch on page load was coming in.
Mm-hmm.
So to do that, we're going to need to kind of like have a higher level component. Like this to-do list will need to be a child of the component that's exported.
Okay.
because you need the suspense to happen in the component below the suspense boundary.
And then do I want this to be, so thinking about the app experience, do I want to wrap the entire thing or do I just want to wrap this list?
Just the list, yeah. So actually,
Okay,
you can
so
move
let's pull
only the
this
list.
out and we'll call this one,
To do
we'll make
page.
this one to do app,
Do app,
and then
yeah.
we'll come back out here and change this to do app. Okay, and then you are going to get function to do list, and that's going to return our to dos here, so we can hoist this up, right? And move it here,
Yep.
I guess. Okay, so we got that, and then down here, each of these is going to start living. Let's see, we'll have you up here instead. Okay, and then you go down here. But we want to wrap this in suspense.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we do a suspense block, and that's going to come in from React. Okay, I fixed my prettier, which I'm very happy about. And I saw already.
Yeah, you need a fallback.
But it's already nice that like we get this before this shows up. So it's, you know, it's like baby steps, right? But so then to do a fallback,
Yeah,
I
this
just add in a component, right?
Goes to one of the points we were talking about on the podcast of like it not just being about like making it easier to show a loading state. We've segmented our app into a different like segment with suspense, and so React is now able to be like, oh, only that segment, like that's the list part is like blocked, right? So we can render everything else outside of it.
And I think what I love about this is that the thing that made me choose React back in 2014 or 15, whenever it was that I built my very first apps, was that when I looked at it, it made like each React app felt like these collections of tiny apps called components. And if I could see the component, then I knew that was how things worked. And it was very easy to like compose apps because the components all fit together and they did the thing you expected. And this brings me back to that, like knowing that this is all of the like the component is here, it's got all the logic in it, and then this just tells React like, hey, you can keep running even if this thing can't break the rest of the app by like making it load slower, by doing weird things that jump around. I now have full control because I can say, we'll do this instead until this is ready and then drop it in, and now I'm back to thinking in components, which is it's just a very nice experience.
Yeah, it feels a lot more Reacty than our effect version.
Yes, I love it. So okay, so we've got suspense. I've got a fallback, and the fallback is I kind of did it while you were talking about something else, but it's just the fallback prop and any component.
Yeah, and if we wanted to, we could do like we could have like a glimmer instead of just showing loading. But yeah, this is great. Now we can fix our mutations.
Yes. So which one do you want to do first? The mark complete?
Let's do the add to do first.
Okay.
So here we have a create to do. So this is similar like the dirty thing that you wanted. So now what we need is after we do the fetch, let's move this down just because I think it'll be a little easier.
Move this down into like move the form into its own thing.
No, actually, let's do the complete first. Sorry.
Okay.
So I want to show how easy this is. Let's go up. Let's add some state.
Okay.
There's a lot of different ways to do this because now we start getting into like needing a data fetching library solution, but I want to kind of show like a very simple way to do it. Let's do like to do's promise.
To do's promise.
Set to do's promise. Use state, use an initializer.
You have to walk me through that.
Yeah, just pass a function there.
Oh, I got you. Okay.
And then return, and then move your fetch data request into there. So what we're going to do is we're going to store that. Yeah, we're going to store that promise in state.
Okay. And I'm not using this anymore?
Nope.
Okay, so this goes away.
Okay, and then we're going to use like const to do's equals use to do's promise.
Got it. Okay. Okay. That makes sense.
And let's move that to do's promise up to the parent component. Pass it in as a prop.
Okay.
Cool.
Okay. And then we got to grab it out here. Which I'm not going to bother to type. We're going to explicitly say any, and everybody hush. Spell this wrong. Use to do's promise. Why are you mad? Oh, I know why. Because I'm bad at TypeScript.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Everybody can yell at me later for that. Okay, so we've got our to-dos, we've got our to-dos promise, and we can see that like functionally nothing has changed.
So now what we need to do in the mark complete is after we're done marking it complete, we need to trigger a refetch.
So I need to get the set to-dos promise in here as well.
Yeah, but let's call that like a refetch or like refresh. So let's create a function. No, let's keep that the same.
Okay.
Let's create a new function called refresh to do's.
Is this async?
No.
Refresh to do's. Okay.
Do set state fetch data.
Set. Like this here.
Yep. And then we have to do one other thing, which is to clear our cache. Otherwise, this will just immediately reuse the same cache. So
cache dot delete.
Here you could probably just do cache equals new map, but you could also
we might as well make it
delete.
Because that way, if we were to use this for something else, it won't blow everything away. And then I can down here just pass this to my to-do list as a buffer. Okay, and then up here we've got our refresh to-dos. Okay, and that didn't work because why? Oh, because you shouldn't be here. There we go. Okay, so then we got our refresh to-dos, and then when we mark complete, we just run that?
Yep.
Okay. So theoretically speaking, this is everything we needed, right?
Yeah, so now does it work if you mark something complete?
It does. After a fashion.
So now let's add this feedback. Like when you click now in the app, when you click complete, there's no feedback of what's happening. Right. So let's use a transition for that.
Okay.
And the best way I would say we should do this is we should have a to-do like item component so that we can show a pending state on on each individual item that you're marking complete.
Okay. And we'll get this is going to have ID, it's going to have the text, and it's going to have the complete state.
You probably just pass the whole item in.
I guess that's probably
So if
easier.
we add any fields to it, you can.
Okay, so we'll start by just duplicating what we've got, which is to throw one of these out here. And we're not going to have a key on this. We'll have a key on the component itself. It's going to be,
Yep.
We'll just call it to do because that's going to make my life easier.
Yep.
And make everybody real mad. And then do I need to pass in this mark complete or should I move the mark complete up?
You could move them. You can move the mark complete down.
I guess we also then we'll have to pass down this refresh to dos, but that is okay. So then down here, we've got our to do item. That's going to get a key. It's going to get the to do. And it's going to get refresh to dos, which is going to be refresh to dos. Let me do one of these. And
Sure.
that should do it. Yeah.
So we haven't really changed anything yet. So just kind of like to refocus on the point that what we're going to do is when you in the app click on one of the items, there's nothing happens. And give it a second.
Oh, because I double clicked it because I thought it was broken.
So let's fix this. Let's add some feedback. And the other thing that happens is like while we're doing the fetch, you notice that it shows the suspense boundary, like it shows that loading.
Mm-hmm.
We don't want that to happen either. So let's use transitions. A transition will allow us to show a pending state on each individual item that's updating. It will also prevent the suspense boundary from. So let's do const is pending. It's an array, so is pending and start transition.
Is pending start transition
Equals use transition. And then in mark complete, at the top of mark complete before the fetch, let's do start transition.
Any arguments?
Pass it an async function.
Okay.
And now you can move everything else inside of there.
All of this?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. And then for our pending, how do you want to show the pending state on each one? Maybe at the end of the item, we'll just add a ...
Okay.
Maybe make that a span, and it is pending.
Oh, right. Okay, so now oh no. What have I done?
You haven't done anything. So you're not you're not using the React compiler. There's kind of like a nuanced bug here.
Okay.
No, it works, right?
No. It's like not updating for some reason. Oh, there it goes. But it's still doing the thing.
Still doing the thing. And so the reason for this is that to do item is not memoized. So when you set no, that wouldn't be it.
Did I screw us by going with not like a regular like beat app or something?
No. Can you click it again?
Refresh to dos kicks off the whole thing again, right? So there's kind of no way for us to not kick off the suspense boundary.
Yeah, but it's in a transition, so it should happen in the background.
Oh,
Let's figure out how we can see what's going on under the hood in React. So, can you check to see what version of React this is running?
yeah.
19.2? Perfect. Okay, so go to the Performance tab in the DevTools and just start recording, and then mark one as done. Done. Okay, stop. And let's take a look here. Let's make it full screen. Okay. Now there's two timelines here in the tracks. So one's called scheduler, one's called components.
Hmm.
So expand the scheduler. So this is one of the features that we shipped in React 19.2, which is these new tracks are showing you like what's going on under the hood in React. Can you increase Command plus to increase the size so it's easier for folks to see? And you can close that left sidebar with the insights with the yeah. Okay,
Okay.
so let's expand the interactions. Let's find your click.
Okay, so we kind of see so there's the click, right?
Yeah, I think this is a bad recording. Let's try recording it again.
Okay, so clear, record, click.
Okay, let's check this out.
Okay. So we've
Okay.
got there's the click. And then here's where we end up spend it again. And then we get everything back here.
And can you zoom in to that suspended?
What a great question. Do I just like,
Yeah, that works. And collapse that bottom bar there. Okay, and then in the components track, you can see which ones are rendering.
my components track is empty?
They're there. It's just you haven't zoomed in enough. It's one thing we could do to make this way easier is decrease the timeout in your server, and then retake because like that
Oh,
suspended
okay.
block is just like making it hard to see the tracks.
Let's take all of these
Like 50.
50. And then take that one down to 50 and this one down to 50. Okay. Clear this, start the recording again. Click the button. See, and that time it didn't work at all. Okay, so this is the one that worked, I believe.
Yep. And so let's zoom way into the beginning of that click. And you can actually like scroll in and out.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah. So
There's our
scroll
to-do
to
item.
the left. We want to see. So in the scheduler track, there you see scheduler, you see blocking, transitions, idle. So let's and you may zoom out and zoom back in to be able to get to the beginning.
Okay. So we got our. Oh yeah, you get way in, and I see. Okay. So we got our to-do item, to-do item, to-do item.
And scroll left. Something is like we're looking for why this is hard without driving. Sorry.
Yeah, I guess we should have set up the ability to let you control.
Yeah, that's where that's where you want over here.
Here.
Yeah, zoom in and see what's happening there in that blocking lane. Click on that update. And then expand the bottom panel where it says summary. Oh, yeah. That should be in a transition. Like, you could click show ignore listed frames. Oh, fuck. Ryan is going to think this is so funny because I saw Ryan in the chat. So I know what the issue is now. The reason the suspense boundary is showing is because there's a synchronous update, and we only avoid showing suspense boundaries if it is a transition. And if you look at this code, you're like, well, refresh to dos is called inside of that transition, right? So why is it not a transition? There's this JavaScripty thing that is a huge pain right now, where you have to wrap that refresh to dos in an additional start transition after the await. So just add another start transition.
Like this?
It doesn't need to be async. But
can it just be like this then?
Yeah.
Okay.
And now our issue should be fixed.
Except I seem to have created like a race condition in here somehow where it only updates sometimes. But it fixed the problem. So I think my bad logic around the post does and doesn't work is kind of not the issue here. But that works. I like that.
Yeah, but the pending state should stay all the way through. You click. Yeah, it does. Okay.
Yeah, I think we're back to really fast. I can let me turn these up a bit again. Whoa, what was that? $500. See that first, yeah, something I did here on that first one, it like doesn't work, and then everything is fine. I'm going to assume that's my bug, since we kind of faked our API. But this is great. So yeah, it does stick through. We can see that the pending state kind of stays with us.
So one thing now is like, it's kind of, for this use case, it's kind of like, well, maybe we should do the add to do next.
Okay. And we're a little over time, so we'll want to kind of get cooking on this.
Let's get that. Let's just do the optimistic update. So in your do item, it's like we're showing this pending state, but let's just what we want is when you click it, it's like it looks like it's done, right? So instead, let's delete this is pending.
Get like the whole thing.
Let's do optimist. Let's just change is pending to optimistic complete.
Okay.
And then set optimistic complete.
Here?
Yep. And then change use transition to use optimistic.
Okay.
And pass in the value that we want it to complete to, which would be to do.complete.
Okay.
Great. And now our start transition, let's import that from React. And then at the beginning, before our fetch, let's set the optimistic complete. And set that equal to not optimistic complete.
Okay. So a quick question, because this is very interesting. Why would we not import start transition from React and use transition instead? Like that was kind of an interesting thing that just happened there.
Yeah. So use transition is you can kind of like think about it as a convenience layer for doing like an is pending state. Like use transition gives you the is pending, which is implemented as use optimistic. But now that we're doing our own optimistic state, we don't need the is pending state.
Okay.
So we actually go down.
Oops.
We're not quite done yet.
Oh,
we can
I know
remove
why I
this
broke it.
pending state.
Okay, so
So
I
let's
remove it entirely.
Yeah, let's remove the. We don't need a pending state now. We're going to do an optimistic update,
you're
and
right.
then
You're right.
the checked state is going to be optimistic complete. And then one other thing you'll have to do is an in mark complete. Yeah, that works. All right.
We're happy?
Yeah.
Okay.
So now if you go in the app.
Oh. And look, we can see as these are going here, I think we'll see it here. Right? Like,
yeah, you can
it's
click it up
pending.
times and
That's I mean, that's nice. Like that now feels like what we expected the app to do.
and now we're at a better state than where we were with our effect example at the beginning, with less code, less race conditions.
This feels clean to me. Like this is what I want the code to feel like, right? Like I want to be using the to-dos down here. Like I want to just say my to-dos are this, and obviously up here we're doing the like kind of generating a promise thing. But this is really nice to be able to do an async operation here and not have to do the mental gymnastics of getting the effect loop right. I really like that up here I can decide what happens when, because like I could run some logic on this if I wanted to, where I could, I could set a whole bunch of details about what is happening in the UI based on this. So if it was like a list on the add a new to do item, we can literally append a new component to the list and then handle all that. So this just feels like what I wanted the effect flow to be. This sort of feels like it sorts a lot of those problems out for me, which is really nice.
And then one last piece is that with this pattern now we can kind of, because one thing that's not great is having to do this start transitions and set optimistics, and remember the start transition everywhere. But we could have a async react first check box component. So if you take your input type equals checked down below, let's just take that and put it into its own component. Let's call it like async input. Okay,
and do I mark it async?
No, we'll just do function. It's a component, so function async input.
Okay.
It's gonna accept two props.
Okay.
And that'll be the value. And then we're gonna do a passive prop called action.
Let me just get this markup out of my setup here, and then I'll replace this down here with our async input, and then that's going to need the value, which will be
for this value, you're going to just pass it to do.completed. completed.
Okay.
And then the action is mark complete. But let's rename mark complete as like complete action, and I'll explain why.
Okay.
Cool. Now we got to move some other things around. First, we're going to need to move this optimistic complete down.
Okay.
And let's just do optimistic value. Let's call it optimistic value and pass the value in.
Okay.
And then
that got weird.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. So
and then this is our action now?
Not yet. So let's create a function in render. And let's just call that handle change, because it's an event handler. Handle change.
Okay.
Now take do a start transition. What we're going to do is we're going to transform this event handler into an action. So let's do an async function.
Okay.
So we need the new value. So we need the event target.
Okay.
So Let's do set optimistic value event.target.value.
Set optimistic value event.target value. Okay.
Okay, and now let's do await action.
Just gonna get you to be quiet. We are await action.
That's it.
Oh, I don't have to like do anything with it.
No.
Okay.
And then down below, yeah, we need to pass the handle change.
Okay.
And call it.
And so where did we get our ID from now?
In the action, in the to-do item.
In the to-do item, in the action, we are.
So now we can clean this up. And before you do that, when you called handle change, you may need to call that function.
Oh, right.
Okay, so now in our complete action.
Oh, crap. Hold on. We got to do it like this because we're passing the event.
Cool. That's fine.
Okay.
Love it. Now let's go to the complete action.
Complete action.
Okay. So
our ID number.
Since this is named action and we're using an action prop, what we've done in the input, in the async input, is wrap it in a transition. And the action suffix tells us that it's already inside of a transition. So we can delete the top level start transition.
Okay, so this one goes away.
Yep.
And this one goes away.
And we don't need to set the optimistic complete because that's being handled by our async component. And let's do one last thing. Remove that start transition from refresh to-dos.
Okay.
And down in your refresh to-dos function.
Where is that? Refresh to-dos, refresh
down
to-dos.
line 76.
Yeah. Okay.
Let's wrap that set state update and start transition.
This one.
Which is what like a data fetching library would do for you.
Okay.
You'll need that to be a function. Cool.
Jesus. Okay, there we go. Okay. So the only thing I'm missing though right now is I'm not seeing where we ask for the ID here. When we pass the complete action here, do I need to
yeah, you don't need the ID there because you can just instead of passing it to complete action, you can just delete that and do to-do.id in your there.
Oh, right, because we can. Yeah, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Because we're basically encapsulating that.
Let's see if it works.
Okay. Ooh, I did something. We're getting a delay.
Oh, can you look in the to-do item, the async input? It's set optimistic value, not event.target.value, because you're toggling it. There you go.
Wait, what am I doing? It's like fast once, and then it's not fast the second time. Optimistic value.
So instead of the target value, do not optimistic value. Sorry. There you go.
There we go.
Sorry about that.
No, all good. This is great. Like this feels good. And then we don't have to deal with that like untyped.
And now you can use the async input anywhere. And you'll automatically get an optimistic update. No matter what you do that's either async or sync or navigations or anything, you'll always get that optimistic value immediate. And then if you're thinking about this as if you had a design component library that already supported action props and you had the data fetching library that already did the transitions in the refresh to-dos, as a product developer, if you look at the to-do item component, all you really have to do is write the code that's like, what do I do when I complete? I post to the ID. And all of
Right.
the, like, loading states and optimistic updates, you don't write. It's handled for you.
Yeah, I think this is great, right? Like I think this is really it, like I said before, it cleans up my mental model and it makes me feel better about doing these types of things inside of React, where before I sort of felt like I was working against the grain. This makes me feel like I'm doing the things that my brain wants to do. I'm making calls to load data in line. I'm, you know, when I want to change something, I change something. I'm not like figuring out how to trigger the dirty checks or how to reset my effect or any of these sorts of things. Like, I'm off the loop de loops of the effect style hooks and into something that feels linear, the way that I would think about these processes. Click, do a thing, do the next thing, and continue with your business, and letting React handle all of those rendering checks. Like, I don't have to know that React renders components every time something changes, right? Like, it's no longer like that. To me, that feels like a really big mental burden to lift off your shoulders, is not having to care when React is going to re-render because you've optimized that away inside of these calls.
Yeah, and the other interesting aspect here is you kind of are writing this, thinking about it as it more being synchronous. So if you look at like the
Mm,
like get to dos and stuff, and all this other stuff, is you're kind of like offloading the mental burden of needing to handle all of the different async stuff.
right. Yeah, I'm into it. Like, I'm a big fan of this. I think this is a huge improvement. Um, and I'm excited to like implement this into the React code that I write. We are over time, so Ricky, thank you so much. If people want to get deeper into this, where should we send them? Like, I'm gonna send people to, again, the React Conf talk that you did, where you go over these APIs, and I'm gonna send them to the use docs.
Yeah. So one of the things that I announced during my talk at React Conf is like the next step for this is to like get these patterns implemented across libraries to make it really easy to use. So if you're just using like React Query or a routing library or a design component library, you get these features by default. So
Mhm.
we created a new working group on GitHub, where we've invited a bunch of experts from the community to help understand and help educate on these. So github.com/react WG working group /async react.
/async react. Here it is.
Yep. And go to
Okay.
discussions.
So get in here, look at the discussions. I guess I can link directly to discussions. That probably makes more sense. Okay, Ricky, thank you so much. I will send people one more time to your Blue Sky as well as your Twitter. And we are going to be back with more Learn with Jason in the coming weeks. I'm working on scheduling now. Ricky, any parting words for everybody before we sign off here?
No, this is dope. React is good, actually.
React is good, actually. Yeah, very, very much feeling that after seeing these new APIs. So thank you, Ricky, for being here. Thank you all for watching. If you're enjoying the show, make sure that you like, subscribe, and do all of the other things. Thank you for watching Learn with Jason. We'll see you next time.